Hi, everyone, and welcome to AI Prompting for Professionals. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Kelsey, and this is module one of a four-part series. And in this one, we're focusing on something that comes up in every professional's day, writing. Reports, emails, summaries, memos, there's a lot of it in our everyday lives, and AI can help you do it faster and better, but only if you know how to ask. And that's what this module is going to be all about. By the end of this module, you'll have a practical framework you can start using today. We're not going to go deep into theory, but we're going to keep this applied and grounded in the kinds of writing tasks that actually show up in your workday. And what I'm hoping is that you're going to learn how to understand what a prompt actually is, use a simple four-part framework, apply it to real professional writing tasks, and then refine your AI output with follow-up prompts. So a lot of people try AI, get a really mediocre result, and assume the tool isn't that useful. But most of the time, the issue isn't the AI, it's the prompt. And so I've done this. I've prompted something not really very helpful, right? Like write me a summary. And you get something really generic. And so the way that you need to think about prompting is that you're giving instructions to a very capable assistant. So instead of write me a summary, if you say, write a three-sentence executive summary of this report aimed at a non-technical audience, you'll get something you can actually use. It's the same AI, but very different results. The good news is that writing strong prompts is a learnable skill, which is why you're here. And that's exactly what we're going to practice today. So I'd love to introduce to you the four-part prompt framework. Every strong prompt for writing has four ingredients: a role, who should the AI be? A task, what do you specifically need? Context, what does the AI need to know? And then format, how should the output look? You don't always need all four, but the more complete your prompt, the better the output. So let's walk through each one. The role is going to tell the AI what perspective to take. This is going to shape vocabulary, tone, and assumptions it makes. Are you a senior accountant? Are you a CEO? Are you a non-technical worker? It's going to you're telling the AI exactly how you want them to act as they move to the task. And the task is the action you actually want performed, and you want to be as specific as possible here. Context gives the AI the information it needs to do the task well. So that can be pasting in a document for it, sharing key details, or describing a situation. And then the format tells it how you want the output structured. Should it be a bulleted list? Should it be a paragraph? A formal memo? Do we want it to be short or long? Do we have an idea of how many words we want it to be? And so when you include all four, you're essentially giving the AI a complete brief, just like you would a human colleague. So let's put it all together. Here's what a complete prompt looks like in practice. Notice how specific each element is. We're giving it a role, act as a senior CPA reviewing a client's books. So it's going to use vocabulary, verbiage that a senior CPA would know and would understand. We're giving it a very specific task. We want a brief memo, and it's going to be summarizing the three most significant variances. We're giving it context that the client is a mid-sized manufacturing company, and we're giving it all the financial data it needs. And then we're also telling it to use a professional memo format, and we want it to bullet each variance into a one-sentence explanation, and we'd like it to keep it under 200 words. This prompt would produce a polished, usable memo draft on the first try, not something you have to completely rewrite. So let's take this framework and apply it to a few real world writing scenarios. So let's start with one of the most common writing tasks, which is summarizing. Maybe you have a lengthy audit report, a dense policy document, or a stack of client notes, and you need to distill it into something concise. Here's how you'd prompt for that. You might say, act as a professional business writer. Summarize the following document into a one-page executive summary. The audience is senior leadership with no technical accounting background. Use plain language organized into three short sections: key findings, risks, and recommended next steps. Then we're going to paste the document content directly below. The AI will work through the material and structure a summary that matches your specifications. You'll likely need to make small edits, but the heavy lifting is done. Think about it. You don't need to go through that huge 20-page report, right? The AI is going to do it for you, and you're still going to use your judgment and you're still going to use your contextual knowledge to make sure it makes sense. But this is going to get you pretty much 80 to 90% of the way there, right? Which is what we're looking for. Next up is going to be professional emails. And this is where a lot of people find AI genuinely saves time, especially for messages that require a careful tone. Or there are plenty of times when I know what I want to say, I just don't know how to say it. And I feel like AI does a great job of at least giving me a starting point, right? So, say you need to follow up with a client who hasn't responded in 2 weeks, and you want to be direct without being pushy. You could prompt, act as a professional CPA, write a polite but firm follow up email to a client who hasn't responded to our information request in 2 weeks. We need their Q3 financials to complete their tax filing, and the deadline is in 10 days. The tone should be professional and courteous, not accusatory. Keep it under 150 words. And what you will get back will be a really solid first draft that you can personalize and send. And the key here is context. We've given it quite a bit of background that, we really need them to follow up. We have a deadline in 10 days. Here's exactly what we need. And so the AI is able to use that context to write a better email. Memos and internal communications are another great use case. I don't know about you, but whenever I write one, I get nervous because everyone in the company is going to read it. And so the best part about these is that they tend to follow a very predictable structure, which AI handles very well. Um, let's say your firm is rolling out a new expense reimbursement policy and you need to draft a memo for all staff. You could prompt, act as a director of operations communicating a policy update. Write an internal memo announcing a new expense reimbursement policy for our accounting firm. The new policy requires receipts for all expenses over $25 and sets a 10-day submission window. The audience is all staff, including administrative and accounting teams. Use a standard memo format. Use a standard memo format: to, from, date, subject, and then 2 to 3 short paragraphs. Close with a line directing staff to reach out with questions. And within seconds, you're going to get a clean professional memo draft. One of the other things I like to remind people of is that, as I said, if there's a predictable structure, AI handles it very well. So if you are at an organization like me where all memos are essentially formatted the same way, sometimes I'll upload an old one and say, follow this format. Or I might say, use the tone from this previous memo. And AI works really well with that as well. Because sometimes if you just say, use a standard memo format and you give them a to from date, that works great. But if your company has a couple extra custom fields or something like that, it might not know what to do with that. So you can always upload a previous memo or something like that and say, use this. And then here's something really important to understand. AI writing is usually a starting point, not a finished product, right? And that's completely fine. The goal isn't to use the first output verbatim, but it's to get you 80% of the way there. And then you can always refine. You can do that by following up in the same conversation. So you can say things like, make this more concise, or adjust the tone to be warmer. Maybe rewrite the third paragraph to emphasize this deadline. Each follow up prompt sharpens the output. Think of it less like using a search engine and more like writing with a draft from a colleague. You give feedback, they revise, and together you get something really great. And before we wrap up, let's talk briefly about when not to use AI for writing. First, always check your organization's AI policies before pasting any client data or confidential information, especially into a public AI tool. Many firms have guidelines about this, and for good reason. Second, AI isn't a substitute for your professional judgment. If a document requires you to form and express a professional opinion, like a letter of recommendation or an engagement conclusion, the words need to be authentically yours. And third, always, always, always read the output before you use it. AI can be confidently wrong. It can mistake facts, fabricate citations, or just miss nuance. So you should always read before you send. You are the professional. You need to treat AI output as a draft, not a final product. And let's recap what we've covered in Module 1. We've talked about prompts is simply an instruction, and the more specific it is, the better the result. The four-part framework, role, task, context, and format gives you a reliable structure to work from, no matter what you're writing. AI is especially useful for summaries, emails, memos, and getting that solid first draft down quickly. And remember, the first output isn't always the last. Follow-up prompts let you refine until it's right. Just always review before you hit submit or send. And that wraps up Module 1. In Module 2, we're shifting from writing to analysis, specifically how to use AI to make sense of data, identifying patterns, and turning numbers into clear narratives. It's a powerful skill for anyone working with financial information. I think a lot of you are. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next module.